and I'll show you. We'll start with the fonts first, and then we'll move on to working with paragraphs, text, and everything else. Okay. So let's generate some random text like last time. Okay, random text. Okay. So now, when you want to change font, by default, Word will produce works in Calibri. I heard Microsoft is planning to change this default. It's had Calibri for a very, very long time. I think the next iteration of it is going to change the default font into something else. So by default, right now, till that change happens, there's Calibri. Now, depending on what you want to change, there are two different ways of changing, broadly speaking. One way to change is by changing the style. So if you look over here, there are a variety of pre-defined styles. Okay. So what the document would typically do would be the normal style, that is the text itself. Now, you may want to make a title. This is the title. Someone was asking, how do you make paragraphs in between? So making paragraph in between, I'm sorry, I don't remember who was asking, but hopefully you are watching this right now. So you just bring your insertion point to where you want the new paragraph to start and hit enter key. Okay, you hit enter key wherever you want the new paragraph to start. That's all. Okay, so now I have done this. Let's assume this is now the title, right? This is now the title. So I select this line. Okay, I select this line and I click title. So that applies the title style to it. That applies the title style. Now, what the title style does is nothing but changes the font, changes the font name, changes the font size, may even change the font name. Okay. So there is nothing that you cannot do manually. Only thing is using the title style will make it consistent, right? So every time you want to reapply the style, it becomes a consistent way to do that. Okay, it becomes a consistent way to do that. Now, suppose you don't want to do that and you want to do it manually. So the first thing is, either way, the first thing is to select. Now, there are again different ways of selecting a line. Okay, there are different ways of selecting the line. There are two major input devices. There are two major ways of selecting, assuming you are not using a touchscreen device. You will typically be using a keyboard and a mouse, right? So now, the way to select with the mouse is first bring the insertion point here, click over here. See, now the insertion point blinking has stopped because I have clicked. And now with the mouse click held down, I am moving the mouse right till wherever I want the selection to happen. Now, even if I move mouse any further to the right, there is no more text left to select. So the selection has stopped there. Once I'm happy with the selection, I release my mouse. So that text has got selected. Now I can do whatever I want with that. That's way one to select. The second way to select with mouse, select the entire thing with mouse, is you bring the mouse to the left of the screen, to the left of the line. So the moment it has come to the left of the line, right, you see that it has changed to an arrow pointing the other side. Usually we are accustomed to seeing an arrow like this, right, pointing towards the top left. But when you do this, I'm not sure, can you see my mouse on when I share the screen? I think you can, right? Can anyone confirm? Yeah, you can see, right? Okay,
Yeah,
great.
yeah, we can see.
I was just a little confused whether it shows up or not. Okay. So when you do this, you see it will change direction. So when it changed direction in that way, you click a single click and that entire line has been selected. Now, if you do this one line, two, three, four, the entire paragraph is selected in like a 2 second kind of a click and movement. So click motion, the entire paragraph is selected. So that's one more way of doing it in the mouse. The third way of doing it with the mouse is bring the cursor to one of the words, double click and it will select the word. Okay, triple click and it will select the entire paragraph. Okay, so here the paragraph is one line, so it will select the paragraph and the line. But if you come here and triple click, it will select the entire paragraph. One, two, three, three quick clicks. Okay, that's the third way. That's the other way of doing with the mouse. Also, you can select with the keyboard. How do you select with the keyboard? Now, if you see here, keyboard, you press shift and press the arrow key. It selects one by one. Okay, you press shift and hold the arrow key. So my insertion point is here. So arrow key alone will move one by one, right? Select, sorry, shift and arrow key will select one by one. Okay. Also, control plus arrow key will move word by word. Okay. So think of control adding like a turbocharger to the arrow key. So arrow key moves one by one. Control arrow key will move word by word, right? Control arrow will move word by word. Select, shift will select. So if I press control and shift, then it will select word by word, right? A very quick way of selecting. Now if I press control, shift and down arrow, entire paragraphs get selected at once, right? Entire paragraphs get selected at once. Now, suppose this way I have managed to select the entire document, but if I know my initial intent itself is to select the entire document, then the easiest way is to have your insertion point anywhere on the document. It can be anywhere on the document and click Control A. Okay, on the keyboard, hold down Control and hit A, right? This is also useful for another reason. Sometimes some of you would have a document like this. Okay, some of you would have a document like this. The document itself is like this. So, okay, it's only this much, but there's a second page and you don't really have an idea why there is a second page. I saw, in fact, some of you had uploaded the document this way. There's a second page. There is no text there, right? Probably you've never even noticed or you have no idea why that has happened. That has happened because there are extra unneeded paragraph spacings. There are different ways of looking at them. One is by looking at it with non-printable characters. Remember, I was telling you that there are characters that are not going to be printed. Okay, so control and star is over the 8 key. So that will give you this. Now this ulta P, in a way it looks like a reverse paragraph. P is a typographic document, typographic mark. This is not going to be printed when you print, and I will show you that. So you see here, now when you look at print preview, you see all of them have gone. Okay, so that's not a character that's going to be printed. It's just there for you to see where are their paragraph marks. So if you see here, all of these are extra paragraphs, and that's the reason why you have a second page. So this is one way of looking at it. The other simple way of looking at it is just doing Control A. When you do Control A, typically the selection should have stopped here, even on another device. But if you notice, there is a gray line that goes all the way here. That means there are empty spaces all the way here. And that's the reason why the second page exists. So how do you resolve it? You resolve it by going to the last of them, insertion point, and hit backspace. Okay. Be careful to not delete any of your text. Now you see none of that second page exists any longer. Okay, so now I want to change the font. I want to change the font, so I can change the font into um, maybe Century, a serif font. This is a serif font. I want to make it bold, so I, with it selected, I can click B, or I can press Control B. Control B is a toggle, bold, unbold, bold, not bold. I don't know if unbold is a word. Bold, not bold. Okay. Or you can use the mouse here. This is a serif font. This is a serif font. So if you look here, there are two buttons. One says a large A, the other is a small a. The large A is a button to increase font size. Okay. Small a is a button to reduce font size. All right. Small a is the button to reduce small size. Large A is a button to increase the font size. Of course, you can do it with the font size chooser as well. Suppose you want 48 directly. Okay. Then clicking 1, 2, 3, 4 all the way up to 48 is very cumbersome. So then you just go ahead and do this. But suppose you just want to make small changes from 16 and you want to see how all of them look. Would 14 be nice or would 12 be nice? So it's easier to do it this way. All right. Now, just because it goes from 14 and 16 does not mean you are limited to that. You can go ahead and type a 15 there. It's possible. You can go ahead and type a 15.5 there. Right? So anything that does not exist here can still be typed out. There is no problem. Okay, you can just go ahead and type it manually and you say that this is the font size that I want, and Word is going to make that, scale it to that particular font size for you. So this is what is a serif font. This is a sans serif font. There is no serif here. A rounded heavy font typically works well for titles and things like that. So if you look at it, the name itself says Arial rounded empty bold. So it's a bold font automatically. You don't really have to make it bold again. We are talking about decorative fonts. This is typically a decorative font. Does not work well for a title. It may look like it's a great font for title, but it's not. Readability is an issue, contrast is an issue, so it does not look really nice, but it is going to be okay if you want some large something for decoration. Not in a document, but say you are using Word to make a poster, right? Then this kind of a font is going to work. You wouldn't believe it, but I have actually seen documents, not from these submissions, but actually documents written in this font. It's a font called Magneto. Magneto as a font was originally, the vintage automobiles. So you would the uh, what do you say? The American automobile industry use this font a lot. Very very popular. So even now in the US and for that matter even in India, you see a lot of auto garages and people who refurbish cars and make modifications to it, they tend to use this font. So while it works very well over there, while it works, it looks like that, but it's typically a decorative font. It says reading is easier, but no, reading this font is not easy at all. So this is what we would call a decorative font. How am I going back? I'm going back with undo on keyboard using Control Z, or you can use this arrow at the top for undo. You want to redo something, Control Y on the keyboard, or this arrow at the top. Okay, quick settings. So that's something which is okay. Then I want to talk about another font, which is Korean New. So Korean New is a font which has which is called monospaced fonts. Okay, so they have equal amount of space between all of the text. So they don't do the kerning that other fonts do. So if you look here, if you just look at save, just look at this word. Another font would bring V and A closer because of kerning, but this font will not do. So it's going to have an equal amount of space between SA and AV and so on. So this looks nice. It looks like a typewriter. Old typewriters were like that. They couldn't really change those spacing. So every letter had a fixed space. So this looks nice and clear for certain works. But again, reading an entire document written this way is quite cumbersome. It's not really a very nice thing to see. All right, so that's about what kind of fonts. Don't use fonts which are very like calligraphy kind of thing. Like if you see here, you can, by the way, if you know the font name, you can directly start typing the font name over here. Okay, so you start typing the font name directly over here. If you know the thing, it will come, right? So looks okay if you're trying to send a wedding card, but not really for any other document. It does not work. And it definitely does not work when you have all caps, right? So you remember on the slide there was this one, this one, all caps. These kind of calligraphy flourishes just do not work. They are made for handwriting, so they are only made for sentence case letters. So that brings me to another thing. How do you change the case of a particular word? If you want to change the case of something, suppose you have written the entire thing in lowercase. Suppose you typed out the whole document in lowercase. Okay. Now you realize obviously the whole document in lowercase is not going to work. Okay. So what do you do? So what do you really do? Let me first make the whole document in lowercase. Sometimes you are not careful about how you are typing, or you are not looking at the formatting. You've made the entire document this way. Now, how do you change this into the right kind of case? One way is go to W, backspace, and write W. Again, go to Y and do the same thing. That's one way to do it. Okay. The other way to do it is to go to this entire document. Now you know the entire document, right? And next to these size, big size, small buttons, you have AA. So that's a button to change case. So go there and make sentence case. What do we mean by sentence case? Sentence case means the first, excuse me. So sentence case means the first letter of every sentence would be in uppercase, or what we call as a capital word. So you see here now, when you click, W is capital, U is capital, 2 is capital, and so on. Okay. Now, is this is this fine? Is this done? It's not really done here at this point, right? Because word is a proper name. So I need to make this word also capital. So I do this, and again I go there. I can either choose sentence case, or I can say capitalize each word. So let me do capitalize each word. Here, since only one word is selected, only that word gets capitalized. But suppose there were 3, 4 words selected, and now I choose capitalize each word. All of those words have been capitalized, not what I want. So I select one word and I say capitalize each word, right? So this one has got capitalized over here. Smart art needs to be capitalized in a particular way. So smart art needs to be capitalized in this way, but A also should be capital. So that there is no real way to do except by doing it manually. Right? Click insert, maybe that also needs to be capital. Word needs to be capital. Okay. So all of these will, you can do it this way. Clear? Now suppose you have inserted an abbreviation. Okay, suppose, assume for a moment this is an abbreviation. Now you want to make this all caps. How do you do it? Uppercase. Okay, uppercase. So you by mistake made this all caps. You want to make it all lowercase, right? Some people write documents like this, very difficult to read. So please don't do this. if you do this for a document, makes the document very unreadable. So do this. Okay. Now, if you notice, there is yet another type of casing. It's called toggle case. Check what has happened when you toggle case. Small r, rest capital. Small y, rest capital. Small I, rest capital. Can anyone think of one particular way or one particular reason why this exists? Any idea? Just a quick question. Anyone, can you think of anything? Because by the first look, it'll seem like a very strange thing to have. Why would you have something of this sort, right? The reason for this is there are people, not everyone is a touch typist. Many people, for that matter, most people, I think, type by looking at the keyboard. Now, suppose you are typing by looking at the keyboard, right? Then how do you type the first word capital? You say shift and the word. So as again, I want to should be capital. So shift and I, as I type this, I am not looking at the screen. Okay. Now let's assume you are doing this. You are making this thing. Okay. Now you're not looking at the screen and you did not realize that your caps lock is on. So just notice what's going to happen. Shift as I am typing this. Okay, actually it changed my casing automatically because of autocorrect. As I, so word will word is doing that auto correction of removing the caps lock, but as I, again, if I if I'm not using word 365, then it'll look like this. Okay, you see what has happened? Wherever you were pressing shift, those have now become lowercase. How do you quickly correct it? You quickly correct it by toggling the case, right? It is so common. We might think that, oh, who would be doing this? But it's actually so unbelievably common that Microsoft thought it fit to include a feature of toggling the case. All right. So questions, I see there are some questions. There are questions in terms of fonts. What should be the default font according to you? I mean, Microsoft has Calibri as the default. There is no real default style. But if you want to choose, there are also some questions about what should be the default font and how to set a different font as the default. So if you want to by default say use something else, right? Then suppose you want to use Arial as the default font. So you make all of your default settings here. You want Arial 12, suppose, okay? So make all these selections in this box and then click set as default at the bottom. Then every time Word opens for you, it'll open with those settings, right? If there is something that you particularly prefer to use. How did I get to that? Font group, that small arrow, right? That small arrow next to font group, click that, or you can press Control D to get to that. Okay, so that will give you, so you come to this, whatever you want to use. You want to make this regular size 12 and click set as default. That then becomes the default font. Which font style is considered standard? Uh, Again, we've just discussed all of them. There is no real one single standard, but like I mentioned, for documents, you want to use a serif font. For web, you want to use a sans serif font. Can we change the space limit between a word? Like, can we have equal space between each word? Again, that doesn't really work as such, but there are other forms of spacing which we will cover today. There's a question about how to avoid space in between words when justified. That's also something we are going to cover today. How can we make paragraphs act certain sentences automatically? Not sure I understand your question, Mr. Sudhanshu. Uh, yeah, some of you actually mentioned caps lock on. That's the reason for toggle case. That's good. Okay, so Rishabh is asking, suppose we want to make a particular word, say game, capitalized as many number of times as it is there in para, how to do that? Good question. There is no direct way to do that using the change case, but what you can do is you see this find and replace over here, right? Towards the right. So you can go to replace, right? And you say replace is case sensitive. So you can say find game, replace with game, and you can say find the next occurrence, replace, or you can just immediately do a replace all. Will replace all of the occurrences of that. Yeah. So font settings, yes, thanks Varun. Font settings, press Ctrl D or click this small arrow under the font button, font tab group. Shubhadeep, tables we will cover in a future session. We have one session dedicated to making lists and tables. So tables, I agree, tables are often a pain because they keep shifting. So we will see how to handle tables. So today we'll just do only the text alone. So I've got some text documents, a long text. So, okay. Now, let's do a couple of different things over here, right? Now, first thing is we do certain alignments of text. So I have seen, we've already seen how to select. So we select the entire text, right? And you can make the text left aligned. What is happening to the text being left aligned? This on the left side, there is one straight line alignment. Okay, everything has a straight line alignment towards the left, but the right is jagged. The right side is actually jagged depending on how the letters go, right? Some people do not like that. We use this for English. The other one does not really have an English use. The right alignment wouldn't have an use in English. So, but anyway, for the sake of take a look at the right alignment, the same thing, but on the other side. Why does it not have any use in English? Because it makes it very, very difficult. We have a curious idea, or because we are not used to seeing the words written this way. So it becomes very, very difficult to read. So many people, what they tend to do is they tend to justify the entire text. What do we mean by justify the entire text? This fourth option, justify, what it does is it is equivalent to having simultaneously a left alignment and a right alignment. Okay, both of the alignments together, a left alignment and a right alignment. The problem with this is, so remember earlier, how was the right side? It was like this, right? Now they have all become in one line. So these spaces, right? There are these spaces. These spaces have to go somewhere. Where did those spaces go? Those spaces actually got distributed over here itself. So if you see here, if you look within the document, this space is actually more, this space is more than it should have, this is more than it should have. You see, this is more and this space is smaller. So depending on how much space needs to be adjusted, Word will automatically increase the spacings and uh, make both the margins equal. Now, this for many people, this looks very neat. So people tend to prefer this one because they say that this is so neat, right? But there's a problem that happens in this particular alignment. So, and you would often see that problem when you are looking at a smaller scale view. So if you look at this smaller scale, or maybe I'm going to zoom out a little further, right? Now it'll get clearer. So if you look here right now, look very carefully, right? You see there is a line of space that is going this way, right? There are these random lines of space that come in, right? So if you see here, there's a line of space that is coming. I mean, I'm not able to follow exactly with my mouse, but you would see here there are lines of spaces that go like this. Okay, there is nothing that you can do. So here, if you see, there is one, and there is one more, right? These in typography are called rivers. In typography, we call them rivers, river. Okay, there is nothing that you could do to it, right? The only way to deal with these rivers is to not really have a justified alignment. Of course, you can have many adjustments that Microsoft and Word have done to it. If you are using professional page layout softwares like Adobe InDesign, Adobe InDesign will have some adjustment which can help reduce reverse, but again, there is nothing that you could do. If you look at the day's newspaper columns are justified always because they use a columnar layout, right? I'll show you a columnar text and then we'll see why that needs justification. But if you look at newspaper from a distance, you look at a large body of text, you'll be able to identify reverse there also. So there's nothing that can be done. So you'll find reverse more when the documents are in columns. You go to layout and there's a column, make a 2-column document. And then you will start seeing the reverse more. Increase the number of columns, increase the number of columns to 3, and you will find the reverse will become a lot more prominent, right? The rivers are becoming a lot more prominent as you increase the column. So here you see one straight line, here you see one line of space. Can you see? There's another one this way, right? So these rivers are now, so you see here, it's following this. You see those rivers? So they are becoming more and more prominent because we are reducing the column width. So one way to avoid rivers is to not have very small columns. Have slightly wider columns, 2-column if you must have columns, then rivers will be avoidable. Okay, that's really the only way to sort of avoid the rivers.